I'm really happy to be back here at Quizlet presenting at another unconference. These are such an exciting time to meet other teachers and get some great ideas of things that you can take back to your classroom this year. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about teaching language arts using Quizlet. And I wanted to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Jessica Pilgreen. I have been teaching in public schools for 20 years. I just finished my 20th year of teaching, and I still love it, and I'm still passionate about education. I have spent the last 18 years teaching in a small rural public school of about 400 students. So I teach all of the freshmen. I have a standard track of freshmen and an honors track of freshmen. And I also teach several senior level classes as well. I am a National Board Certified Teacher in English Language Arts for adolescent and young adulthood. I have a Master's of Arts in English with a specialization in literature and a doctorate in education, and that's from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. So it's nice to see everybody here and to see that I have people coming from all over the different states and different countries to learn more about how to leverage Quizlet to be successful at teaching and to really help your students succeed in the ELA classroom. One other thing before we get too far into the different ways I use Quizlet in my classroom, I like to share my Quizlet username. And the reason I do that is because when you get onto Quizlet, you can search not only by topics and subjects, but you can also search by username. So if you were to go into Quizlet and search for username Jess Pilgreen, then you would find all of my study sets. So if you think that you might be able to use some of my study sets, go ahead and jot down my username. I want you to go find my sets. I want you to copy them. I want you to customize them and make them fit your needs. So I teach, like I said, on a regular English one, regular like traditional level, as well as an honors level. I teach a senior level British literature class. I teach a senior level English 4, which is multicultural novels. So it's low level, but high interest novels. And then I also teach a creative writing class as well. And I also have some study sets from a college level composition 101 and 102 also. So if any of those sound like things that you might be able to use or adapt for your level, please make sure you jot down my username just so that you have access to those study sets later on. Also, I love a lively chat. So as we're talking, if you see something and say, oh, yes, I do that in my classroom too, or that gives me a great idea, especially for the younger grades. If you see something and think, I can really adapt that, excuse me, for my students, please let me know in the chat. I think it's really great when we can kind of work together and share thoughts. All right. So the first thing I like to do with my English classes is I like to make sure that my students stay organized by using classes. So you can always start off the school year right, nice and organized, and help your kiddos by staying organized with classes. So you'll see an animation here too. I'm just showing you how easy it is to create classes. And when you create classes, then you can add specific study sets or folders of study sets if you want to add entire folders at a time. And then your students will have access to those study sets and folders throughout the school year. And then that way, these will always be ready to go. So if students need to do a bell ringer activity, if you need emergency subplans, if you need a class wrap up or something for early finishers to do, excuse me, you can just have them go on to their classes, and then all of those study sets that you want them to have access to will be there. And then also, when you create classes and you invite your students to join those classes, and then you add study sets, your students will have unlimited access to learn and test with those study sets that are in your classes. So that's another bonus feature that you want to make sure that you have classes set up. So create classes, invite your students, add study sets or folders of study sets to those classes, and then your students will have access to learn and test, which are really great features that you want your students to have. But I just love how organized it is there. All right. Also, another thing that I really love about Quizlet is that it makes it so easy to find content. There is no reason to reinvent the wheel. And yes, you can create your own study sets. That's one great way to have content that's going to meet the specific needs of your students. But also, if you need something like, I need to find a study set about the different types of conflict, like man versus man versus technology, all of those, then you can just search and you are going to find tons of study sets on that topic. And then when you copy a study set that somebody else has created, you can remove terms, you can add your own terms, you can go in and add all sorts of other things to it, and then save that study set so that it has been customized for you. So why waste time like creating something from scratch when there might be something else that another expert, another teacher has created that's going to be perfect for you? And even if it's not perfect, that's why you can go in, copy, and then customize. Copy and customize has saved me hours of time over the years. So that's something that I really recommend. And then you can save your sets to the classes again, or if you want, you can share them with your students through email. You can share with a link, or you can share them through your learning management system. Like I use Google Classroom, but you could also use this with something like Blackboard, Schoology, Canvas. All of those different things will allow you to share with students as well. And then, excuse me. Okay, you can also customize your sets. Now, some of these things are Quizlet Plus features. And also, if you want to learn more about how to customize your sets, Maureen had a really fantastic session yesterday. Excuse me, the Quizlet 201, the second class that you could do. And it was amazing. She talked about how to use like rich text formatting and how to add photos. So if you want an even more in-depth look at how to do these sorts of things, I recommend, while you have access, going back and watching her session about this. But this is one way that you can modify your study sets. So you can, for example, here I have characters from Othello that I wanted my students to know. And I wanted them to know not just the descriptions, like the definitions, but I was kind of emphasizing as well, like their political positions or their military positions. So I put each of those in bold. That way, when they read through and they look at Cassio, it's not just a young and inexperienced soldier, but also they're like, oh yes, he's the lieutenant. And Desdemona is the daughter of a senator. Brabantio is a politician. So I just wanted to emphasize those key terms. I could also go through and emphasize other terms, like if I wanted them to look at Iago and I wanted to emphasize he's the antagonist, I would have bolded antagonist. Or if I wanted to emphasize something about Othello being the protagonist, I could bold protagonist. So whatever you want to emphasize, those are the things you can go in and you could bold. You could also highlight, you could underline, you could do that sort of thing as well. I know somebody in the chat said they're really interested in grammar. And Maureen talked yesterday, she teaches world languages, but she was showing grammatical structures where on her definitions, she would highlight like the subject in one color and then the verb in another color. And that was really cool, the way she was using it for more grammatical features. I've also done this if I have terms that have very similar definitions, but maybe one of them has a keyword like all the time, and another one has a key expression like some of the time or never. Any words that I think are going to catch my students up and maybe trick them, but I don't want it to be a trick question, I can go in and I can bold or underline or italicize or highlight those terms as well. So just know that there's lots of options here where you can go in and add those things with the rich text formatting to customize your study sets. Okay, another great idea here is that you can customize by adding pronunciations and audio to each of your terms. Because I know as an English teacher, it breaks my heart if I'm giving students a vocab word like epitome, but then I hear them talking about like epitome. I'm like, oh no, like they learned the definition, but they don't know how to pronounce the word. So if that's something that you're concerned about, the correct pronunciations, you can go in and quickly add audio. You'll see like the little audio, the button that shows you where to record the audio. And it's as simple as just holding down a space bar and then you read the definition into your microphone and it will record for you. It's really one of the easiest, most user-friendly ways to record that there is. So you can do that. Also, I put my Greek mythology on here because, again, students have difficulty correctly pronouncing those names as well, especially when I get to, yes, somebody said the hyperbole for hyperbole. Yes, I get that. I'm glad it's not just a my district thing. Yes, yes. So yeah, if you want to make sure that your students are able to correctly say those words, you can add the audio for that. Yeah. Like I have Prometheus, Epimetheus, Hephaestus, like some of those names are very difficult for my students to, and I won't even get into how they say them, but absolutely. If you're teaching words that can be challenging to say those, then you want to add some pronunciations into yours as well. And again, this I think is a Quizlet Plus feature. I do pay for Quizlet Plus just because it's one of the cheapest year-long subscriptions that are available out there in terms of ed tech options. And so to me, it's well worth it to be able to do all these customizing features on my study sets. Okay. Another great way that you can customize your sets is to add images. So this will really help your students visualize concepts. And I myself am a very visual learner. You can tell me that Cerberus was a three-headed dog, and I will try to remember it the best I can. But if you tell me Cerberus was a three-headed dog that guards the gates of the underworld, and you show me a picture, that picture is going to stick with me longer and have more impact than if you had just told me alone. So you're really hitting like multiple learning pathways here. You're targeting not just your audio learners who like that verbal written, but you're also targeting those the visual learners. So when you pair those two together, it's really going to help your students solidify and understand and help them visualize and hang on to that information and hopefully move it into long-term memory. So this is just another really great idea here. So the example here I have, you'll see I'm flipping through them, is I have pictures of monsters from Greek mythology. And again, it just adds that extra layer to help my students remember. So, and then another great thing about pictures is when you try to add a picture on Quizlet and you go in and you type in something, a lot of the times it will populate suggestions for you. So you can just go in and choose the picture that you like. But then if you can't find something that you like, you can also save images from online, or you can create your own images or have students create images and then save those and upload those from your computer so that you make sure that you have the picture that you want on your study sets. Yeah, I'm glad. So if you like these features, go ahead and let me know in the chat feature. If you've tried photos, if you have tried audio, if you've tried customizing with rich text formatting, go ahead and let me know in the chat feature. I love to hear how other people are using this. And also, if you teach the younger grades, I hope that you can see a use for this as well. So I could see things like if you're teaching vocabulary words or spelling words, you could do a picture and then the word and have students kind of match those as well. So I'm trying to think of, I know I don't teach the younger grades, but my daughter is going into 3rd grade. So I'm thinking about some of the ways like the activities her teachers have her do and how this might be beneficial for them as well. And I think pictures are great for students regardless of the level. Yeah. Yes, somebody said, I've tried the images and the animated GIFs or GIFs. The students love them and retention is better. Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's so much you could do with these. Absolutely. But I just love, like, we love traditional flashcards, don't get me wrong, but the idea of making them this dynamic is just a really great way to engage your students. Okay. So another thing I like to do, the flashcards are really great. Like if we think of Bloom's taxonomy, flashcards are really great for engaging sort of those lower order thinking skills like remembering. So like rote memorization, which, rote memorization isn't a dirty word. There are some things that students will need to memorize. And then you work towards using that as a solid foundation to then scale up to those higher order thinking skills. But I also love using Quizlet to engage some of those higher order thinking skills, especially making inferences. So one thing that I will do is that I will have a picture, and then students have to examine the clues in the image in order to decide, for example, which character is being shown. So this is a lot of fun. What I do here is, especially with Greek mythology, like they've already memorized that there is a Titan who supports the world on his shoulders. So then they look at the picture, but now instead of having just the definition, because believe it or not, some students, they come up with like loopholes for memorizing definitions. Like I found out that I had students who were just memorizing like the first couple of words rather than the entire definition, but they can't do that here. So what they have to do is they have to look at the image that's presented. They see here a statue of someone who's kind of leaned over and he's carrying a giant orb on his back. And then they go, oh, well, that has to be Atlas, because I know he's the Titan that carries the world on his shoulder. So this is a great way for me to sort of work in those higher order thinking skills by using images. And you could use this also with diagrams as well. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. But there are some really cool ideas about how you can use images to work those higher order thinking skills and not just the lower order thinking skills. Now, my students, it drives them a little nuts because it's definitely added challenge, but that's what I want for my students. I want to push them a little bit and see if they can do some of those higher skills as well. All right, speaking of diagrams, I love diagrams. So diagrams, really what you do is you create a picture or you find a picture and then you put it in your study set, and you can create little hotspots or points on that picture. And then you label them with words, and students have to match like the word and the spot on the diagram. So what I did here, I'll kind of walk you through, starting with the furthest back image here that you see. So that one is actually Shakespeare's Globe Theater. And what I did was I found a not copyright protected image, and then I blurred out the labeled pieces. And then I put little dots or spots on the pieces that I blurred out. And then I created labels. So then when students do match, they have to match the little hotspot on the image with the part of the Globe Theater that lines up with. All right, so the next one that says loyalty, really big at the top. I wanted to kind of help boost student morale and school pride. So what I did was I took our school's fight song and I made an image using PowerPoint. And then I saved that PowerPoint slide as a JPEG file. And that's really cool too. If you can make some nice fancy PowerPoint slides, you can save those slides as a JPEG or a PNG file. And then that image can be uploaded to Quizlet as a diagram. So that's what I did. I made this image of the school's fight song. And then I went through and I uploaded it to Quizlet. I used the blur tool to blur out just a couple of the words at a time. And then I made those words little hot spots. And then you'll see off on the right-hand side, like working, loyal, best, fame. Those are all words. So then they would have to click on the word and then where it goes in the lyrics. So that was one way I was trying to get them to memorize the school fight song. It was kind of fun. I also had the poster hanging up in my classroom, and we would visit that for just a couple of minutes every day during homecoming week. But if there's any text you want them to know, then this would be a good option for that as well. The third one you'll see there is a family tree for Greek mythology. So again, I created my own image using a PowerPoint. And then I went in and I uploaded that image to Quizlet in diagrams. I blurred out the terms that I wanted to test my students over. And then I put hotspots over those blurred spots. And then you'll see when they play match, they have to click on the correct spot in the family tree and then the character's name. And once they match those up, then those items disappear. And you'll see a match game later on too. And then finally, the last one I have, this is just a template, and I have this on my my Quizlet study sets if anybody wants to go find this and copy it. What I did was I used Canva because Canva has so many great like templates visually. So I went in and I got one of their timelines. I uploaded it to Quizlet, and then what I can do then is I can go in and I could use this for multiple different topics or novels that we're reading. Anytime there's something that I want them to be able to put in chronological order, I go in and I just edit the steps, and then they have to line those up. So Oh, this template here, the timeline one comes from Canva. So yeah, the timeline is from Canva. So if anybody wants templates, you can go in there. Most of them, the other three, let's see, the one in the back was just something online. The Globe Theater was an image online that I found that was not copyright protected that I could upload. The other two middle ones, the loyalty and the family tree, are ones that I created myself in PowerPoint. You could also create your own in Google Slides as well. And then the one in the very front came from Canva. Yeah. All right. Next, and I talked a little bit about this in my session yesterday. I did one on, microlearning, if you want to go back and watch that session. And then Megan talked about this also yesterday, and it's the ability to use Learn to sort of customize a learning path for you. So now when you go in and you click on Learn, it asks you a couple of questions to get you started. It asks you like, hello, what's your goal for this study set? Do you want to memorize quickly? Do you want to memorize it all? Or do you want to learn and apply? And then it will also ask you how familiar you are with the information that you're reviewing. Is it all new to you? Do you know some of it, or are you kind of an expert and you just need a quick refresher? So this is great that now it's sort of customized for you and will build a personalized experience for you as you're reviewing. So Learn is fantastic for vocabulary or anything that requires students to memorize. You can customize again with these various features. You can answer with the term or the definition. You can have it ignore typos. You can study all of the items or just study the starred ones that you've indicated you want to come back and study. And you can also answer using written or multiple choice questions. And this is great if you want to sort of activate background knowledge with your students. If you want them, like I like to do background knowledge, especially on parts of speech with students, because no matter how many times they've been taught a noun, freshman year, I need to review nouns. No matter how many times they've been taught verbs, and I know my daughter, who's 8, she's learned verbs, but still every year, English teachers know this, we have to do some reviews of some of the basics too. So this is a great way to do that and get students sort of caught up or refresh their memory of some of those concepts that we hope that they've retained. And then test, I love test. So I know that the option to print tests was gone for a while, but it is back. So this is another great feature. I use this all the time as like a practice quiz or a practice test for students. You can also use this as a pre-test as well. Sometimes I'll print out like a vocab test and I'll give it to the students. They have a few minutes to try to answer as many questions correctly as they can. And then we go over the answers, they correct the answers themselves, and then that practice test turns into one of multiple study guides that they have access to. But I love that there's so many different ways to modify your tests. So you'll see here that there's lots of different options. You can change the number of questions. This one was for a study set of only 7 questions, which is why it says questions max 7. A lot of the times I'll do like 20 or 10, depending on how much time we have and how many words I have in my study set. But then I can also ask students to answer different types of questions. So I can do true, false, multiple choice, matching, or written. And to me, I view these as sort of different difficulty levels. Like to me, written is the most difficult type of question that I can ask my students. And then matching is sort of middle ground as well as multiple choice. And then true, false is probably the easiest type of question. So if we're starting out and this is the first time students are practicing a set of words, I might go easier on them and give them, they're all true, false. And then the next time we review, if I give a practice quiz, it might be a mix of like 50-50 true, false, and multiple choice. And if you want to make questions like 50-50 split, what you do is you just mark the types of questions that you want to be asked on the test, and then it evenly splits those. So if I just want true, false, I would just mark true, false. If I want half true, false, half multiple choice, I would select both of those, and then it's going to do half and half. If I select 3 options, it's going to do a third, a third, a third. And if I pick all 4, a quarter of the test is going to be each format. So a quarter true, false, a quarter multiple choice, a quarter matching, and a quarter written. So this is really awesome. It's a great way to differentiate if I want my students who, like, sometimes with my honor students, I'll give them the written version. My traditional track of students, I'll give them matching and multiple choice. And then my students who maybe have IEPs or 504s, I'll use more true, false, and multiple choice for them. So this is a really cool way to differentiate, as well as get in that practice with students. It's a nice self-assessment. So an example of ways that I use this in my classroom might include like a pre-test and a post-test on literary devices, like similes, metaphors, that sort of thing. I also print these each unit, and I use that as an exam review guide as well, because I know that a lot of students like to play online games, but I also still have several students who want that paper. Maybe their Wi-Fi isn't strong at home, or maybe they're just like, they're really kinesthetic and they want to have like that pencil and paper to do the writing, because I still have students like that as well. So that's another option. I'll just print it out and then I staple them all together, and I hand that out to students as part of their review guide for exams or for unit tests. Okay. If you love tests, or if you've used tests for other things, please feel free to share that in the chat feature as well. I love hearing how other people are using these things in their classroom. All right, Match. And I think yesterday we heard that Match is going to get like a little bit of a facelift, which is exciting. I can't wait to see what it looks like when it's been sort of revamped. But this is one of my most popular tools to use with my students. So this is a fast and fun game where students drag and drop the definition onto the term, and when they've correctly paired them, the definition and term disappear, and then they're left with less options. So it can be competitive, but I think it's less threatening than something like Quizlet Live, because the students are kind of working independently. And there is a leaderboard, which adds a little bit of competition, but I try to just encourage students to compete against their best score. So try to beat your old score and don't compare yourself to other people. Beat your best time. Now, I do have students sometimes who like a little friendly competition and will say like, hey, this was my time, what's your time? And that's fine too. If they like it, they can use it. But if they don't have to feel like this is a high stakes, high pressure sort of way to learn. And what you see here, my creative writing class has to learn different colors and what those colors symbolize in writing. So I added images of the different colors also to add that extra layer. And then they just match those two together, and then the different questions disappear as they get the questions correct. This is also kind of cool because it teaches the strategy of do the questions you know first and use process of elimination, which is a good skill for test taking that not all of our students know. So that's a good added benefit here of Match as well. Okay, so Quizlet Live is awesome. It's been around for a few years now. I like that the usernames are anonymous, so you use animal names instead of students' individual names, at least on the leaderboard, and that's whether they're competing independently or competing in small groups of about 3 or 4. And so that's another feature too that was added after Quizlet Live, is that now you can have students compete individually instead of small groups. Although I still love the small groups because it builds in that collaboration skill that's really important, students helping each other with the questions. And then they get to work with their peers, and it creates a nice sense of community as well, because they might be working with students who they don't work with all the time. And I also find that some of my students who are not motivated to compete individually, like they don't want to do the worksheet, for example, and it's not affecting anybody else, so they're completely fine just not doing the worksheet. Or they don't want to play independently, they're perfectly fine just sitting there and not playing. However, if they're on a team, they don't want to let down their peers. So this is one way. I've seen a lot of students who are kind of apathetic, but then when I put them in Quizlet Live and they have to be part of a team, they really step up to that challenge. They really want to work with their peers and help each other. Yeah, yes, all right. So this is also a great tool to just see where students are in terms of, are they ready for that summative assessment, or do I need to go back and reteach something? Because obviously some of the terms are still getting them and confusing them. Or are we prepared for exams? Let's see how we're doing. So this is one of those great tools that gives me some data to see how my students are doing. And then I can use that information to plan ahead for what I'm going to do. Like, do I need to stop, go back and reteach, or can I move on to the next topic? Checkpoint is also awesome. And I saw Kendall mentioned Checkpoint as well. in the chat feature. Yes, checkpoint is great too. So at the top, you see sort of an animation of what the student sees. It's kind of like some other games out there, and it can be kind of competitive. And then at the bottom, you see the teacher report. So the students love it because it's quick, it's energetic, it's fun. It doesn't really feel like a test. It feels more like a game. But then I, as the teacher, get the report down there, and it shows me, like, on this question about the Sphinx, how many students answered correctly. So then this would tell me, okay, I need to go back and reteach the Sphinx if not enough of my students understand it. Okay. And this is another great tool just for that data. Are my students prepared? Can I go on to a summative assessment? Can I review for exams? Or do I need to go back and reteach? And to set this up, the teacher just chooses 12 questions, and then the students get 20 seconds per question. So then it moves you forward too as well. Great tool. I love the addition of this. It's things like Checkpoint that get me excited to see what's coming next. And also QChat. And I think there's a whole session on QChat, excuse me, from yesterday, but I love this. The conversations, I've just been playing with it to see how my students are going to like it. And I tested it out with some of my seniors at the end of the year, and they loved it too. But there's so many different modes: the 2 truths and a lie, the study together, remember with a rhyme, apply my knowledge. There's so many different things they can do with this AI. And I'm not saying that AI can replace the teacher, but if you're with, like me, and you have a class of students and you've got like 28 kids in there and you can't go around, this is kind of the next best thing, I would say, is having this. Like, I was playing with it last week just to kind of see what I could get it to do, and the results were so cool. You know, okay, so the modes, I had them do apply my knowledge because I wanted to hit the application skills. But I also, yesterday, after one of the sessions, somebody said, oh, I got it to write a story for me that used all the vocabulary words. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I'm going to go in and try that. So yesterday, I went in and I pulled up a vocab set. It was just 10 vocabulary words for the novel Speak. And I went in and I typed, it was in apply my knowledge. And it was asking me, like, what do you think this word means? Can you give an example? And I said, and I was doing that, but then I put, tell me a story. And it said, okay, but we're going to keep the story within what you're studying. So it wrote out like a short paragraph story that used all 10 of the vocabulary words from my Quizlet study set. I was floored. I was like, I could take this and I could blur out a couple of those vocabulary words and see if the students could figure out which word is in there. Or it would just be great to see them see it being used by the AI, like they could see it being applied and how it could be used in sentences. Because that's another skill. Like, a lot of students will know vocab words, but they might not necessarily know how to use them well in a sentence. So it's really cool that the AI can do this. If you haven't checked out QChat yet, I highly recommend, before you go back to school, just take like 30 minutes to play with it, because it's amazing what it can do. Yeah. All right. Another cool thing to do is to pair some of these items using a simple website. If you know anything about Embed Code, Embed Code is like, it sounds scary, but really it's like copy and paste a lot of the times. But Quizlet has Embed Code. So here I have an example of a very simple website that I created. It's literally just a video, a TED Ed animated short that takes like 4 minutes to watch. And then I embedded off to the side a Quizlet study set. And if anybody wants to see this, the link is right there. It's the tinyurl.com/unconferencehero. Okay. It prompts with match because that's what I wanted, and that's where I pulled the embed code from. But once students complete match, then it gives them the option to go in and try some of the other modes as well. But it's really cool, and this would be a neat way to sort of pair a video, and then, okay, now let's see how much you learned. Now let's apply what you thought of. Yeah. Yes, Canvas. I know Canvas plays very nicely with embed code. Absolutely. I'm not sure about the other ones. I use Google Classroom, which doesn't really use embed code. But it literally, though, took me maybe 5 minutes max to create this website. And most of that was me adjusting so that I liked the way things were formatted on the page and the white space looked nice. So if you want to use something like Google Sites, or if you're already familiar with a tool like Weebly or Blogger or something like that you would like to use, this is a great option to use as well. Okay. And then another fun thing is to pair it with an exit ticket. So this is one idea, is to have students use the QChat to do a little bit of review over their vocab and make sure they're applying and they can use it in sentences and they really understand everything. And then after they've done that, have them complete an exit ticket. This one was created in just a few minutes and using Google Forms. So I have the link there at the top for the QChat to review types of conflict. And then I have questions. So now that you've completed that QChat session, how prepared do you feel for a final assessment over types of conflict? And then which features did you use? And then what are your next steps to prepare for the final assessment? Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear somebody says this is good for music terms as well. That's awesome. Yes. Good. So yeah, just think about that too, comparing, and it doesn't have to be the QChat, it could be a match game, it could be flashcards, it could be anything you want, but then possibly pairing that with an exit ticket. And if anybody likes this exit ticket and wants a copy later, you can email me. I'll share my email address at the end of the session, and then I can share this with you. Okay, one other great idea, and it's because I go back to school in like 2 weeks, and I know some of you are probably going back soon as well. One great thing that I've done is I have the first day of school, I give every student just an index card. On the unlined side, they write their name. And then on the lined side, they write a few fun facts, which I know if they're high school students, they probably write fun facts for everybody. But does everybody turn those fun facts into a Quizlet game? No, I don't think so. So what I do then is I have them mark a few of the facts about themselves that they're comfortable sharing with other people. I collect those, and then I create a private set of flashcards about those students. And then these are all fake names, so I'm not violating any sort of privacy here. But if you see under options, you can make visible just to you and then save it. And then you're the only one who can see that study set. That's also what I do if there's a study set that I actually want to use as a quiz and I don't want the students to see it. I just make it a private study set. So that's what I've done here. That way I can protect my students' information. But what I did was for the terms, I put students' names. And then for the definitions, I put the fun facts. And then what I can do for this is we can play like a Quizlet live. And then not only will my students be sort of breaking the ice by working together in small groups, helping each other out, building up morale, creating that sense of community, but they're also learning about each other. And it's cool because they'll help each other too, like volleyball team, who in here has seven siblings? And then like little Johnny over here, oh, that's Nevaeh. Don't you know Nevaeh? And blah, blah, blah. And it sort of creates a conversation as well. So this is just a fun little activity that you can do with your students also. All right, so we have, I think, about 5 minutes left for Q&A. And again, if you think any of these, oh, sorry, I'm looking at the chat. I keep getting distracted. If you see me pause, I'm reading the chat. But if you would like any of my Quizlet study sets, you can search my username on Quizlet. It's Jess Pilgreen. And then if you would like access to these slides, or if you would like access to anything you saw in my slides, just send me an email. It's pilgreenj@westclin.org. That's the school where I teach. And I think I saw somebody say K-Hawks. I'm wondering if you're from Collinsville, because that's actually not too far from me. What a small world. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to field some questions here. So Wendy says, I saw your English 102. Do you have 101 comp set too? For me, there was a lot of crossover. I did the 101 one semester, and then I taught 102 the second semester. So there's a lot of crossover there. I'll see what I have, if I have a folder that's just for 101. I'm not sure if you can copy a whole folder or if you can only copy study sets. I've only ever tried to copy study sets, but there might be a way. I mean, you could try it. How do you use live for an online class? Oh, for an online class, it would have to be something that you do synchronously. So it would have to be something like either you're using Zoom or like Google Meet or something, so that students have access at least to the code to join. Like they don't have to necessarily have their cameras on or anything, but you would all have to sign up to start the game at the same time. And then they would play individually on their devices. Okay, let me see what else I got. I think diagrams is a Quizlet Plus feature. Yes. Oh, okay. The hotspot is put in with Quizlet. It's not something that I put in using PowerPoint. It's something that isn't once you, and I think there's a session either yesterday or today. Go back in and look at the recordings later, because there's a session that I think, and it might be Maureen that did it, just on using diagrams. But you upload the diagram, and then there's a blur feature to blur out anything you don't want students to see. And then you can go in and you can put in either like a circle or a square or a customized shape, like if you were doing states or something like that. And then it's the tool feature that does it there when you put in the diagram. Oh, hi, Shelby. Yes. Oh, okay. So my study set for my English 4 class, which is the multicultural novels, I don't have them in a folder. They're all kind of broken down by novel. So I teach like Monster by Walter Dean Myers, American Born Chinese, which is a graphic novel. We do, I'm trying to think of what else. The House on Mango Street sometimes. So the novels are just all separate. I don't have them in one combined folder for that course. I probably should. I should probably try to organize them a little bit better before school starts. But right now they're just spread out by book. Oh, and also the Absolute Diary of a Part-Time Indian. That one's on there too. That's the other one that I always cover. And then, yes, Chris, I'll use a lot of some templates from Canvas or Canva, not Canvas. It sounds similar. Canvas is the learning management system, and Canva is a website that helps you design different things. But again, I've also used just PowerPoint and Google Slides as well. Okay. It looks like we're going to run out of time. I only have 1 minute left, and I want to thank everybody for attending my presentation. I really appreciate it. And again, if you have questions that I was not able to answer, please send me an email. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Like, that's something I want to do. I love it when teachers help other teachers. So consider me a new resource for you. pilgreenj@westland.org. And then everybody have a wonderful afternoon or day, depending on your time zone, and enjoy the rest of the unconference.